Bless up for tuning in to Project Cheney. Magic happens when you question everything. Conspirituality becomes reality, weirdness is welcomed, and it's okay to change your mind. Big up yourself.
Big up yourself. Welcome to another episode of Project Cheney. How are you guys? I am excited to bring you this episode. If you have been along for the ride of my journey in podcasting, you know that this interview is the longest time coming. And I'll tell you more about it when I actually get to redpillbabe. But it's been an exciting week in Hollywood since we hung out last time. It seems the world is ablaze because Megan Fox admitted to drinking Machine Gun Kelly's blood. If you have been along for the ride of the Church of Hollywood, even just a few years, then this is not news for you. Celebrities drink each other's blood all the time, and a real popular one would be all of us knowing about Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton wearing each other's blood vials around their neck. So this isn't news. Somebody pointed out on Twitter to me today the Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Yeah, you guys, this is what's happening. This is what Hollywood's doing. This is what we're talking about with adrenochrome. This is what we're talking about with Frazzle Drip. This is what we're talking about with the Yulin Dog Festival. This is what we're talking about. It's not a conspiracy. It's a drug that if you haven't seen the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, watch it again. Let's bring up Johnny Depp. And then we're going to dance our way right into that easy segue. So Johnny Depp also and Amber Heard, their trial has been everywhere in the last week. It seems to be the George Floyd was our first trial, and then we got Kyle Rittenhouse, and now we're gonna sit with I guess we had a few not impeachments thrown in there of trials we got to watch. Then we had the Ghislaine Maxwell drawing festival where they just showed us a bunch of handwritten badly drawn pastel art for Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, and now we're at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, where we are hearing every gruesome detail of their weird Hollywood relationship. Now, we could easily talk about Johnny Depp, and just off the top of my head, I could say the Viper Room sketches me out. River Phoenix's murder around the Viper Room sketches me out. The fact that he dated Winona Ryder when she was so young sketches me out. I don't know why the image that I got of Winona Judd and Johnny Depp, like, no one else on earth could ever hurt me. Oh, shit. Back on my Johnny Depp train. So he's creepy as all get out. Anyway, he is employed by Disney. These are all red flags that totally go off to me when it comes to the psyop known as Johnny Depp. Also, in my think mirror brain, I think Depp backwards is Ped. I won't go into that. That's something totally nerdy for my weird Latin and etymology and shit that I do. Anyway, now we go into Amber Heard. Amber Heard, her whole crazy tale and the way that it kind of implants itself into the Me Too movement at the same time as the Aja Argenta and the Rose McGowan. And then we also have the Amber Heard and her and Johnny going back and forth a while before we actually get to this trial. This is a few years coming. And in between time, she also has a baby, and there is rumors and talks that she actually stole frozen embryos from Elon Musk. So now, if we want to segue over to Elon Musk, we have Elon Musk, who just gave frozen embryos to his ex Grimes, the necromancer, the Shigami worker. So Grimes is this pop star that she and guess who? Bradley Manning from WikiLeaks fame, who transgendered into Chelsea Manning. They're together now and have Elon Musk's next child. So what a crazy web we weave with this Hollywood tale. And if we are watching a movie, it's just getting better and better. And I think that the real way people wake up isn't through the politics. It isn't through the news. It's going to be through Hollywood. So I love that everyone's paying attention now, and it seems to be such a commonplace thing that all these little anons and digital soldiers are just jumping right on to any of the juice that Hollywood even drops, any of the symbolism, any of the signs, and I love it. I love it. I love that we're here. It's fucking weird. I'm fucking here for it, and that's my brief sum up of all that kooky cocky. So now back to Elon Musk. Elon Musk buys Twitter. And I was on with my Maria 777 this week. You can check out 2 podcasts that I've been on recently on hers. So if you haven't checked those out, they're really fun conversations. And she says because of watching shows like Succession, if you haven't watched that on HBO, we talk about it frequently, and watching shows like Billions, you almost saw the entire play out before it happens that she knew Elon was going to end up buying Twitter because of the slow press releases that are done. You can see the actors come into play. You can see what Wall Street's going to respond, or what the Wall Street response is going to be. So it's almost like they cover all their bases, and then Elon Musk buys Twitter. Now, Sam Tripoli posted, did DARPA just buy Twitter? And my Maria said, did DARPA just buy DARPA? And I kind of loved that even more, because the idea that you would think that LifeLog, which is a CIA program that later becomes Facebook, if you would think that that isn't organic, but you would think Twitter is organic, is ridiculous. And that you would think freedom of speech or any representation of freedom of speech would need to be represented on Twitter is insanity. It is a private corporation. So what does Elon Musk, which I see all the worship out there, and I could go from the Neuralink to the Tesla car shooting around the earth to the boring tunnels dug under LA to the SpaceX propaganda to everything about his uncanny valley face that looks AI as fuck to me. No part of me, even his insider trading of just being able to decide when to go on to Twitter and say to the moon about any fucking cryptocurrency he wants to. And there isn't a person on the planet that made more during the coronavirus and all the fake lockdowns and all the bullshit than Elon Musk. So when you guys want to talk about Pfizer and you want to talk about Moderna and you want to go into Bill Gates and you want to go into Jeff Bezos, just know Elon Musk made more money than all those things put together. So when we're all talking about evil villains, it's really easy for me to see one in Elon Musk. And, he did start spreading his whole narrative on my favorite podcast, Joe Rogan, where you can see JRE and Elon playing with the boring flamethrower. Anyways, I digress. So Elon Musk buys Twitter, and everyone's so excited about it. But my favorite part is that Donald Trump says, maybe it's the scorpion in me that I'm not coming back to you. So I like that Donald's like, yeah, I don't care what happens. I'm not going back to Twitter. I'll stay on Truth. And if you're on Truth or still waiting for an account on Truth, things are slow going over there, but it's been week after week that Truth is the #1 downloaded app inside the app stores. So something is amiss here. Either the technology powers that be are governing Truth, so we all really don't know how many people are on there, or Truth is really having such an influx of users coming in that they can't get the software up and running in time. But something's going on, and I'm excited about it. And you can find me at Chaney, CHANEY, on Truth. The OG, just by itself, because that's how early I got it. You also might be able to find me at the Vatican. You also might be able to find me at Bohemian Grove. Those accounts are not working yet. I am not clarifying whether or not they're really me, but they could be. Anyway, so the Elon Musk buying Twitter thing, it is whatever to me. Maybe it's my contrarian nature. Maybe because I repeat over and over again that nothing is fucking for free in Hollywood. So if you're the richest man on the planet, that is nothing but sus to me. Also, this is so weird that I remember this because Bella and I actually talk about the insurrection a little, the 1/6 of it all. On 1/7, on my way back from DC when I was at the insurrection, I'm driving back into Florida, and right as I hit about Daytona, it comes across the radio that that's the day that Elon Musk is announced as the world's richest man. He overcomes Jeff Bezos as the world's richest man. I swear to you, that day, 1/7, a SpaceX rocket goes off in front of me. It was too cloudy for me to really see it. It lights up the sky if you're in Florida, and on a cloudy night, it just ends up looking like a raging fire in front of you. So we didn't really get to see the rocket on our drive home, but I do recall it being 1/7 was the day that it was announced. So if you look at graphs of Elon Musk's wealth and think that was the day that he overcome Jeff Bezos, and now he almost has double the money of Jeff Bezos, those are creepy times ahoy for me, you guys. Creepy times ahoy for me, you guys. Do you hate it so much if I stick a big, huge mouthful of pineapple in and chew it and then come back to you? I hope you don't, but I'm going to do this because I'm not going to stop this recording. I'm liking the energy right now. I'm excited to hang out with redpillbabe with you guys. And so I'm going to do it. Cheers. I'm going to try not to chew with my mouth totally full or speak. But I get anxious with too much silence. So, so good. If you have the luxury of living in Florida and you can see the wealth of fruit that I get to put my hands in every day, #blessed and get to stick in my yummy little mouth. Anyway, sorry you had to witness that. It's very unprofessional of me, but since I don't pay me really well, I do what I want here. Okay. So I talked to you guys about Elon Musk a little. I talked to you guys about, do I want to go into anything else before I start gushing over RPB? I don't want to talk about Sandy Hook right now. I've gone into the wall with computers with you guys. Do we need to Disney? I don't even think I need to Disney with you guys. Yeah. Anyways, I guess I'll just start gushing about redpillbabe. So, me and RPB have been supposed to hang out for a very long time. And before the election, I had a podcast called The Idiocalypse. And somebody on the podcast called Donald Trump Cheeto Jesus. And so RPB got wind of this right before we were supposed to go live, and so she didn't come on. So I was like, oh, what the hell? But I kind of knew, like, it was getting close to the elections, and she didn't want to be on a format fighting about Donald Trump, and she didn't know what she was getting into and didn't know who I was, and I know what my avatar looks like. It does not look like the avatar of a Trump fan. Anyways, life happens. Time goes by, and I finally have my own show, and I'm finally going to have RPB again, and the whole internet falls apart, and redpillbabe and I end up on opposite sides of the internet, and I could have held a grudge like a dirty little scorpion does. But I respected the shit out of her too much And I still watched everything she did. And I watched how she showed up at school board meetings. And I watched how she always put her money where her mouth was. And I watched how she wasn't just a big talker online. She was actually doing this stuff in real life. She wasn't just an internet hero. She was doing real life hero shit. And as much as I wanted to hold a grudge, I still really liked Bella. I still really liked Red Pill Babe. So, whatever happens in our internet wars. And she reaches out to me one day and she's kind of like, hey, I'm sorry for being a weirdo. And I'm sorry for all the shit that happened between us and whatever. And I'm like, hey, I can't believe we're in this place where adults apologize for things and I respect the shit out of it. And I'm excited and let's be friends. And so over the period of however long it's been, we've become real life friends and we talk on the phone. And I've gone down to Miami and I've gotten to hang out with RPB in real life. And she is actually one of the first internet friends I got to meet in real life and got to give a hug to and got to know there wasn't just a truther out there who thought a lot like me and was on the side of good and wanted to change the world in the way that I saw it being a better place too. But she also lived in my state and she was an old school Florida girl. And then we had a lot of connections about just what it meant to be Florida and just what it meant to grow up here and just the different things that we just feel really lucky and blessed about to be alive in this time, and our love for Trump and our love for DeSantis, and how silly this whole world has been that we are doing internet memes and fighting with strangers and loving strangers and probably fighting a 6,000-year-old death cult, literally with a bunch of class clowns, a bunch of memes and gifs, and a bunch of jokes and silliness. And yeah, so in all the craziness of, I guess it's weird to fight like adults, but really we're fighting like adults, like children online. But our inner children kind of came together and became friends in real life. And at first, I don't know if any of that made sense. You'll find that I probably smoke too much before I do this intro. And me and RPB definitely smoked too much doing the interview. But I'm excited that she finally came on. And we totally hang out and chillax, and I try to catch you guys up with all the other stuff we talk about. So when she comes on again, it can just be us shooting the shit a little bit. And in between time, Red Pill Babe and Wake Up with Linda, they've started a podcast called Mostly Peaceful Latinas. And it's their podcast, and they do people on the street, like where they ask questions, and they're really just turning it up and taking it to a next level. And it's not just a political show. It's for Latin women, and it's this huge sect of society that's really being overlooked. And I think the media would lead you to believe that a lot of Latinas are screaming liberals somewhere. And the more I find and the more of them I meet, they have this really core conservative family values, and they're all showing up and fighting fights for children they don't even have. So I hope you enjoy this interview. I really love Bella. I love Red Pill Babe. I really am liking the Mostly Peaceful Latinas. So I hope you go and find all of these things. I hope you like and subscribe to her channel if you don't already. And yeah, maybe you roll a joint or a blunt or pack a bowl and you get silly high with us. And as always, you guys, thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening to the show. And thank you for sending me all the good energy and all the love and just being so great. I feel like I'm so lucky and I have one of the greatest audiences out there. And I'm going to have some really exciting, fun interviews coming for you soon. I am scheduling things now. I have a couple of trips coming up that might be hit and miss, but who knows? Maybe there'll be some interviews in person. Maybe I'll bring my mic with and see what happens. All right. I love you guys. All the best energy to you. Here's Red Pill Babe. Hi, Bella Red Pill Babe. This is the longest time coming of any of my guests on my show. Finally, welcome to Project Cheney.
Hi, babe. How are you?
Good.
It's good to be on.
Finally. I'm excited to have you on. I'll let you light that since we're going to have a smoke down. I'll take a hit too. And the best part, if it's too long of a pause, I'll just edit it.
Beautiful. I love it.
Perfect.
So,
welcome. How is the New World Order treating you?
You know, out here surviving the clown world, watching it peak daily. Daily peaks in the clown world. What can we do? Make memes.
Are you nervous about Ukraine and Russia?
No. I don't know. My intuition tells me that that's gonna, whatever the theatrics are supposed to be, either whatever narrative is supposed to be setting up or deflecting from or whatever it may be, because we never know. I just don't feel like that's too far away. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's more noise than anything else.
Do you think we'll have COVID again?
Yeah, I think we'll absolutely get COVID again. I've been thinking that they're going to switch it up. I've been thinking that they're going to hit us with a smallpox, but that's
something heavier and scarier.
Something heavier and scarier. I think that that's kind of them. They keep on pushing to see how far they can take it, right? I think that everything that's going on with Ukraine right now is an example of them pushing Russia, right? Like how far can they push Vlad and how far is he going to allow them to go? They've been Ukraine has been at the border for quite some time making noise, and Vladdy's kind of just been on the sidelines, just telling them, hold back, don't get crazy. And, they've gotten loud and they keep pushing him. And I think that it's mirrored to what it is that we experience on a day-to-day basis, that everybody's just getting pushed to their limits to see how long it's going to take before they fully execute their plan. Do they need another 5 years? Do they need another 3 years or whatever, however long it takes, however long we continue to fight back, push back.
I was like, am I broken in my history brain? Has Russia always fought against Nazis?
I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but I do know that Russia's got a history of wanting to be left the F alone.
I feel like just today, because this is like the weirdest word. I was actually putting up an Obama post because I saw that Obama got COVID. Him and Michelle have COVID. And so I put up the word Barbarossa? Barbarossa. So there's like an operation or Project Barbarossa. And it was when the Nazis were trying to invade Russia. And it was the biggest invasion of all time on the planet. Like more tanks and planes and everything. And so I'm like, And then if you look at World War II, 30 million Russians died. They always say 6 million Jews and 10 million Polish. 30 million Russians. Like a full genocide happened on that
I need to go look
invasion.
into more Russian history to like truly understand what happened like prior to the Gulf War. I feel like that's kind of like where I've capped my research at. It's like Gulf War and then like everything that's unfolded since then to lead us to exactly where we're at right now.
So much of my Russian history comes from my American uh, filter, and they were always the enemy. Like, I never even looked into China because I just thought Russia was the bad guy. You know, the sickle and hammer and the big red
Correct.
flag. And they used to be the Soviet Union when we were kids, the USSR.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Up until the Gulf War, which is when we start like that's when everything changes.
And some people say it's because Christianity came into Russia. Like, they used to be communist and they weren't allowed to be Christian.
That's actually a great point because a lot of people keep on calling Vlad a communist and saying that Russia operates as a communist nation, and they don't. Communism was actually outlawed in Russia, I believe, in 1993. So I can see how bringing in
Bella, what do you
Christianity
know
would have.
about communism?
We know everything about communism. I, I'm a product of communism to some degree and how it affects the effect that it can have on countries, on its citizens. My family escaped communist Cuba. My grandmother, was a political prisoner in Cuba for 10 years. My grandfather was a rebel fighter against the Communist Party of Fidel Castro. So come from a long line of communist fighters. It's a big priority of why it is that I do what it is that I do. Everybody's got their reasons that drive them. And to me, the preservation of the republic is what, I don't know, I guess what like drives me the most to do what it is that we do. Because I saw my parents lose. Well, I didn't see them, but I saw the outcome of it, right? Like what living in exile looks like, having to give up everything, and their true I guess desire to want to see me grow up in the US, which is synonymous with freedoms and liberties. And I don't think that there's anywhere that's perfect in the world by any means, but I very much believe in the American experiment. And I think that if it wasn't corrupted by lies and bought politicians and what we know of, I think that it's something that absolutely could work and did work. But that's kind of where it is that we're at right now.
How did your grandmother get captured? What was her experience like?
So my grandmother got caught. Her job, if you will, was that she, looking the harmless mom, widow of two kids, she would travel up from the city to the mountains to smuggle up guns to the rebels. And they caught her on one of her drives. And
10 years.
she was supposed to be there much longer. She was supposed to be there longer, but 10 years. My parents, my dad and my uncle had just lost their father. My dad was 7 years old when she went to prison. Imagine 7 years old by the time they got out.
Did your grandmother ever make it to America?
Yeah, absolutely. They did. So my family left Cuba shortly within 2 years or so of my grandmother being released from prison. They leave to Venezuela, and they lived in Venezuela for another 6-7 years, I would say. And then from there is when the 6 to 7 years to go through the process, which is something I talk about all the time. When the conversation about the border comes up, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, my parents had to wait 6-7 years in a in Venezuela, in this other country, that just to be able to file paperwork, pass backgrounds, all these other things that you need to do in order to legally get inside of the country. And I mean, I'll tell you, if anything, I know people down here that are what do you call this program with the immigrants? Not, was it Hope? No, it wasn't Hope. What was it called? One with
Clinton?
No. They let in all these like immigrant kids from like Nicaragua. And
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the program's called.
anyways, they're it's
I thought you were going to
incredible to
ask me a
me.
question about Janet Reno.
And not that kid. um I guess it's just like a comparison. Like I'll talk to people sometimes that have come into the country illegally, and then I look at the way that I was raised from my parents who had to go through a significant process and pay fees and dues and take time and make lines and, make schedules and visits. And there's just such an appreciation for this country and what it offers them and what it offers me. And always such a sense of pride of of me being born an American, and to see that level of appreciation come from somebody who had to work that hard to make it into the US compared to people that come in here illegally, like it solidifies it for me more that, when things are handed to you, you're just not appreciative of them. When you can just walk through this, yeah, get an imaginary border or whatever the heck it is, when you could just walk through it, and have, no repercussions for it or not, whatever it may be. There's just not a sense. I don't know if there's the same sense of appreciation for the opportunity that you're walking into with walking into America. I mean, I know that the world is shit right now and we're definitely by no means the perfect country, but I just don't think that there's anything better than what it is that we have here.
There's a lot that people take for granted here. And everyone
Absolutely.
always is like, well, God, you're born free and you're born this and you're born that. Yeah, tell me where. Tell me
Correct.
where it is that you're born free.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always I mean, America is an infant baby compared to the bloody histories of some of the other countries out there that people love to praise, right? Like, to me, it's the opportunities that we have as individuals here, right? Like, you could do anything. Shani, you can start a podcast. You can climb the corporate ladder and become the VP of some like big company. You can like start your own business and like sell chocolates or whatever the heck it is. Like, you can do literally anything in this country. It's like
And
there's
you
no
can do it no matter your avatar.
absolutely. And I think that's just so like that alone right there. It's like there's a reason why entrepreneurs from all over the world come into the US to pursue their dreams, why they come into our schools, why they come to live, I'm very fortunate to be very well traveled. And the obsession with Western culture is worldwide, with the exception of a few places in Europe that I visited. Like, pretty much the rest of the globe is obsessed with Western culture, with how we live our lives.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think of the couple of cities in America that dictate the fashion for the world.
I had a really cool experience in Japan in Harajuku. So where I grew up here in Miami, you know that I grew up in the hood. I grew up in Little Havana, the Spanish hood of like Miami, right? So I was in Harajuku and I walk into this like sticker store to like get fucking stickers. You hear my dog whining? She's such a little bitch. Rosie.
My animals will set me off.
So we walk into the sticker
I don't
store
hear her
and
though.
all right, so it's just me. We walk into the sticker store and the girl's like, she's helping me with the stickers or whatnot. She's like, "Oh, where's your accent from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from America." She's like, "Where from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Miami." And she's down to the detail. She's like, "Where are you from in Miami?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Little Havana." And she's like, "Oh, Versailles, Cafecito." Oh, she was fully aware of like what was going on down here in Little Havana. And I thought like, wow, like what a testament of the power that Western culture has, that here's this like random, had to be, teenager, like girl. And she was fully aware of this like little small politically driven restaurant in Miami that's like famous for like presidents going to take pictures at it. And she was fully aware of what it was. And I thought that was so
Miami's a
cool.
whole vibe. Like Miami's worldwide a vibe. The colors of Miami, like from the Gianni Versace, like 80s walk of Miami to what it is now, to even like what Will Smith with the cheesy Miami song where all of a sudden it's like, oh, and here's this wave of Miami. Madonna's Miami.
It's great. Miami is legendary. Have you ever seen that video? But they're interviewing him and they're like, "Oh, you're from Miami, Florida," and he's like, "No, I'm from Miami, not Florida." He's like, "But Miami's in Florida." No, Miami is in a state of its own. Miami does its own thing.
It's its own.
It is its own. You can go anywhere else in Florida and nothing is like Miami.
It has just as many zip codes or area codes almost as the rest of Florida.
Yeah.
Like I'm so old.
I was unaware. I know that we're up to 3 now. We're up to 3 area codes. I know that they just took out the new area code, which is the one that all the foreigners are getting.
Separate from Miami.
And by foreigners, I mean like New Yorkers and Californians. Literally anybody from a liberal state.
You're like, you guys get your own zip, so we know what ones to flick the switch on.
Correct.
Miami's its whole own vibe, but during Corona, were you like, oh, I wish it was more like the rest of Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when I became like extremely aware of like how important local government was. Because when you started tracing back, it's like sometimes I hear like some of these like, Donald Trump doomers and they're like, oh, if it would have been Hillary Clinton, we would have never gone into lockdown because people would have just not trusted it. And it's like, well, that's a lie. That's a lie because at least I can attest to what was going on down here in Miami. And people weren't shutting down their business because Donald Trump told them to. They were shutting down their businesses because they were getting fees on their businesses and all sorts of like tickets and cops showing up and their threats to shut down your business and take away your liquor license or take away your ability to make money. It's like it had nothing to do with Donald Trump, but it had to do with local government. The mayors, the commissioners. I have one of my oldest friends in the world is also very locally involved, and she's just over the top with the red pilling, and she took her son to a park and the park was shut down. And again, this was in the middle of COVID, and she's like, well, the state is open because remember DeSantis was like, we're not shutting down, we're wearing masks, whatever. So it's like, why is this park closed? And it's like, well, doesn't matter what DeSantis says. Commissioner XYZ said that the park is closed and therefore it is. Well, then that wasn't going to work. So then what did it take? A couple of moms getting together, maybe 3-4 of them, and calling this one commissioner and telling them that they needed the park to be open. And that's how it went. And they opened up the park. A lot of people don't realize that because civic duty is just not something that anybody has been paying attention to for a very long time. It takes very little pushback for these people to start freaking out because they've never been held accountable before in any capacity. So even like the smallest bit of accountability creates a problem for them because they're not used to it.
Do you think it's important? Like somewhere, do you think there's been a psyop that only like lawyers and businessmen become politicians? And it's supposed to be more just run-of-the-mill people?
Hell yeah. I think that whoever invented a career politician was, I don't know, I guess I could see how that would absolutely be some kind of psyop sold to us. The idea is that government was always supposed to be representative of the people. That's why we are set up. That's why the republic is set up as it's set up with the checks and balances that it's set up. That's why you have a local government, because San Francisco, California operates very different than Palm Beach, Florida, because the people in freaking Ohio have completely different needs than the people living in New York. So government was always meant to be representative of the people that live within that area. So if the average person here is an accountant or a recruiter or a podcaster, Yeah, absolutely. The average person that's those what a person does for a living isn't what's representative of a person that lives in that area is. Are you stuck in the traffic of these shitty highways that were supposed to be fixed years ago and there's still money being pumped into them and nobody knows when they're going to be fixed? Yeah, then you're a good person to run for local office and find out what it is that's going on there. Do you have to dial the local police department, so therefore you're concerned with a budget that goes in because they've been breaking into cars in your local neighborhood? Yeah, you're the perfect candidate to run for that local office. Is your kid going to the public school where they're teaching CRT and teaching them how to jerk off in the third grade or whatever it is? Yeah, you're the perfect person to run for politics. That has nothing to do with what you do for a living or this facade that they've sold you, that you need to have this like squeaky clean past, or I can't have anything that's salacious in any capacity. It's like, fuck that. People want to see regular people in politics. It should have always been that way, and I think that the pendulum is definitely swinging back to the place where people are recognizing, I don't want to vote for fake ass politicians. I want to vote for the mom that's with me in the PTA meetings, or the guy that I'm in the force with, or the teacher that the lady that was my teacher in the third grade. Like, those are the people that people want to vote for these days, not the third generation politician son of so and so from whatever commission seat.
I know that's what every single one of these families, when you look at them and you're like, the Cuomos have been heading up New York for decades. The Browns have been heading up California and now to Oregon for decades. The Pelosi family has been heading up California for decades. You can almost go through these families and you're like, oh, the Bush legacy for decades, and that would have just gone on and on. The Clinton legacy for decades, and that will go on and on. Will the Trump dynasty be another one that we're like, and now we have the Trump family and the Trump kids?
I hope so. We need one. No, I mean, look, honestly, it's like, even if it is legacies, I don't even think that are the issue, because if some people are gifted like that, and some bloodlines are going to be gifted like that in their own right. I think that what it comes down to is more so term limits. It's a conversation that we can't stress enough how important term limits are. That's the reason why we see so much corruption in government, because there are no term limits. So the power that you have is endless. Nobody should be in any seat longer than what we would allow a president to sit in. I don't think anybody should be sitting in a governor's seat and a commissioner seat and in a mayor seat, nothing, in a school board seat. I got a lady sitting at the school board of Miami-Dade County that's been there since before I was born. What are we doing?
Yeah, she hasn't even been in the school system long enough to make a vote on the school system. How could she possibly know anymore?
At what point do we just, and it's not that, it's just that, how can that lady have any idea what your establishment at that point,
It's easier to control if I have you already by the nuts and I already have you in every way over the barrel, then I'm going to help you stay in office every term. I don't want anyone to replace you, because then I have to worry about controlling another noob.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And I can see that the problem is, and it's the biggest problem that we see on the right, that the left does not have, by the way. The left does not have this problem at all, which is that people don't want to run. And then the people that do run, or people don't, and it's not just about running. It's about opening up nonprofits. It's about opening up PACs. These are all things that take time and money and efforts from not just one person, from several people. And the left has been doing this and taking care of stuff like this for years, filing lawsuits against laws that they don't like, Republicans that are passed by a Republican majority. These are all things that the left has become expert at for years, and that the right has been asleep to. And now that the last couple of years have really forced us to start looking more in that direction, and it's like, wait a minute, why is the left so effective with what it is that they're pushing out? And you try to adapt that to the right. I think that the biggest problem that we face as a populace, if you will, is the the idea of superiority amongst us, the virtue wars, if you will, the
The
own
me
division
being
is
angrier than the victim. The because I'm like that Karen mentality, the white lady where it's like the constant guilt of being a middle class white lady and virtue signaling every single thing.
I think with me, it has more to do with our inability to support one another as a party. I think that the way the left operates as one fully functional silo, they don't turn on each other. Their president sniffs kids and they're okay with that. Their Antifa groups burn down cities all summers, and they build funds to bail them out. The, these are all things that the left comes together for. And I remember that being such a big thought in my head after J6. It's like, holy shit, like the left set up funds to bail out their people and protested in the streets about the protests that they had that had led to the. And here we are, J6. And I remember
and our side mocked us like 6 months later.
6 months, Shani, I was just about to say, forget 6 months. They hadn't given people the opportunity to get from the Capitol to their hotel rooms, and there was already people on social media, like the likes of Benjamin, what's his face, or another. I can't fucking stand him. I disavow what happened at the Capitol. These are not conservatives. Excuse me.
And you're also the same people were the nerds. People that were like, "Yay, we wish we could go."
So how many of these people made money selling 1776 t-shirts? Get the hell out of my face. Are you kidding me?
What was 1776 to them?
What was?
Look at that mad snake.
Look at that angry snake. I must be hungry. I look at that hungry snake eating itself. It's also it happens on every capacity. Like, you'll have the people who have now turned on Trump think that they're above the people who haven't turned on Trump. You'll have the people that are MAGA Inc. look down on the people that are QAnon. You've got the people that, are like in the 3%ers calling the QAnon people Q-tards. You've got I just think that it's so wild how fully divided our community is in every capacity. People can't support one another. I see it happen local.
What about this crazy idea? What if, as long as we keep dividing, it means at least we're still free thinking? The people that are already bought and sold into the agenda, into the liberal idea of like, now we're BLM and now we're Ukraine and now we're trans bathrooms and now we're triple vaxxed.
Yeah.
And now we're
correct.
Like, they're just following like a fish, like wherever the head fish goes, they're all just following it like a school, where even though we're not together and it's messy and chaotic as fuck over here, at least we're still like, even if we're always taking half sheep, we're taking the other half sheep, now we're taking the other duality, at least we're still picking something that's not the narrative yet. But I was about to harsh us. I was about to talk shit, because this is how digital people, meme makers, one of the things that I have to blame us for in the shutdown of the whole entire Wuhan virus is we were the ones that spread the videos of the people passing out in the streets. Like, we were the one that took it to the next level of putting the sandbags in the road and being like, look what they're doing over there.
They've used us like that plenty. That's how they've also created the split narrative on J6. By using, that was like one of the main things that I remember. Everybody's like, oh, set up, oh, Antifa, that's it. It's like, no, hold on. Donald Trump tweeted everybody to go out there before that. So if we're going to go down the narrative where it was all a sting up, then what are we saying about?
I think we I really believe everything down to right now in the Ukraine war, everything when Project Bluebeam comes, everything when the next Corona shutdowns happen, all of it's been written about in a playbook because the demons rely on the stars and suns and moons and cycles of things that they hide from us. I don't quite understand it, but they've written about it forever. They know the exact dates. Some good guys along the line find out some of these dates. And so the insurrection, I think that was them to take our guns out of the equation. I think that was supposed to be like this bloodbath, and they were going to like, here's the police and here's this. But we all showed up on the movie set because of Donald Trump being like, okay, because we were all going to go to watch Pence do the speech as like
But do you think that they would have done that if that was truly the case? You think that that would have happened in Washington out of all places? Like Trump could have brought us together everywhere. It didn't have to be DC, where you can't have any weapons. You could have a musket though. Just something to keep in mind if you ever find yourself in the face of another insurrection.
Don't you remember, like, everything was closed? It was weird in DC. Like, everything
Just kidding about the musket. Just kidding.
She said muskrat.
Sarcasm. It's comedy.
It was just extra weird. I was like, this is one of the bigger festivals I've ever been to, and there's only one hot dog cart. There's only like 6 porta potties at this thing. And some of the people that were dressed up, I felt like if you were to be a liberal and make a movie how to scare people of what a Trump supporter looked like, they had them dressed up like that, like militiamen, and then they put them as, like, if you look at all the videos, they're all those dudes like hanging over, and I remember a whole bunch of like people that were like, what the hell is happening? Like, these people are so mad. Uh-oh.
Sorry, the dogs are all coming in. Sorry.
No worries. I didn't know he was going to come in and be like, what moon holiday is it?
Like, how tall are you? Took me a while. Like, do I add the extra half an inch or no? Oh man, yeah, it was just such a wild. It was. Hold on, because I'm really high and I completely lost my train of thought. But I know where I was going with this, which was the separation and how taken back I was by that. I was really exceptionally taken back by how quickly people jumped at feeding, like, because really all that it comes down to is that the people who had disavowed what had happened at the Capitol within hours of it happening, just like, oh, you know, we don't condone, it's not knowing what was going on, believing the exaggerated footage that was out, the doctored footage that they had put out, because we know that some of it was. Watching that happen live and seeing the lack of vision for what we're all collectively fighting, I guess that's the part where I'm not going to say that it's demoralizing, because it feels like that sometimes to some degree, but it almost just kind of makes you want to put on the brakes a little bit. Like, maybe I'm in a rush to watch people bring this machine down, and it's not on my timing, it's on God's timing. And it's given me, at least 2022 is the year of like, all right, you take the wheel. I'm gonna sit in the back and I'm just gonna enjoy the view. That's kind of where it is that I'm at right now this year, with the at least with the experience of being on our side and like red pilling and like being involved and like trying to do it all and trying to inspire or lead or whatever the hell it is that you'd call it, you know, because I've never wanted to just talk shit about the things that I feel that we need to do collectively. I've always wanted to lead by my own example of it. And I guess that 2020, stepping into 2022 has just kind of been one of those years where it's like, you know, it doesn't matter how hard you do or how much you do or how hard you work to make it right. It's really going to have to come down to what the collective is ready to do and not do. And I just unfortunately feel like the collective isn't ready yet to come fully together to like really get something done. It's like the world is literally ran by the pedophile Illuminati baby eaters. And it's like, that's it. Like that's the reality we're in. The world is ran by these weirdos. Like, congratulations, you learned that they're all weirdos. Now you need to accept the reality that the world is ran by these people. So we're in a war where it is literally everybody against those people. You're either one of them or one of the people who don't want them to be in power. And that's the dilemma that we should be facing every single day. And I don't think that we're there yet. That's going to mean that we've got people on our side that we don't agree with. You can look at Russia and disagree with that and disagree with the way that he runs Russia, and also accept the fact that the globalists shouldn't be the ones to go in there and decide what it is that takes place in Russia.
Are we not under everything that we're under a dictatorship if our voted elected official isn't rightfully in place?
Yeah, of course. We live under an occupation. Like, why are we ignoring that? Like, the people of Russia elected Vladimir. Like, they want him there. They don't want him to leave.
And the number one reason that I went to the Capitol was because my election was stolen. And it didn't really matter how you voted. It should matter to every American.
It should matter to every American. I remember that there was like out on Twitter, people that were putting out tweets talking about, there were Democrats that were like, yeah, I'm aware that it was stolen. Like, yeah, I'm glad that it happened, but it was stolen. Like, what? Where have we gotten to? And we live in that awareness, which is, again, I don't feel that, and there's a lot of people that did. There's a lot of people that disavowed what happened at the Capitol and also said that they agreed that the election was stolen. Our forefathers are rolling around.
To watch the Capitol thing unfold and then watch the convoy thing start? Did you feel like they were like, oh, it's the insurrection, but with trucks?
No, I'm a sap when it comes to things like that. I love the energy of those moments of like patriotism and like the country coming together and the collective cause and people showing up and donating their time and money. I don't know, like I'm a sap when it comes to all of that. So to me, it's just I'd love to see the energy. I saw more energy at the convoy. I don't know. I guess that it's just a different thing to be able to explain, but
that's how people treated me for January 6th. Before I went, I felt like a lot of people reached out to me and offered me, like, I had $12 in my bank account. I had left my, whole livelihood because of the COVID. So, and I didn't want financial currency. I knew everything was just going to work out, but everyone was just like, let me send blessings. Let me send this, let me send that. And it was just kind of like that same idea.
I've told you the story about my gloves while I was over there in DC, the coldest day ever. And I had no gloves, and some random lady that sat next to me gave me gloves.
It was just sweet.
The charity. Yeah.
That's where it doesn't, I feel like it only takes, my friend Jeff said, like, an agent provocateur, it only takes one person to throw a brick to make 1,000 people look bad. And that's exactly what I feel like happened that day at the Capitol. Yeah. It was like there was a couple of people put there to be bad actors to make us all look away.
Of course. Well, because they knew what it was supposed to represent, and look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things, like, I don't think that people should have breached the Capitol, but again, I believe that doors were let wide open to give people the impression that walking in wasn't going to be all that much of a big deal, so there was a lot of confusion, a lot of smoke for people, a lot of fog. I don't want to say smoke, but just a lot of fog, and things that maybe I wish would have happened differently. But at the end of the day, I don't see how that would be any different than like a soldier replaying the way that like a battle took place while he was fighting someone, and maybe like dealing with the fact that, if I would have
Did you think of
you know,
breaching?
move. No, that never, breaching the Capitol never occurred to me, because I just, again, a certain level of like respect for the entire, for the sacredness, I guess, of the building to
I
some
picked up
degree.
a stick
But
and I put it, I was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I remember
where
even
are you
thinking,
going?
what am
Where
I,
are you
who
going?
raised me?
I felt that it was important to be there. Like,
Mhm.
there's a story that I talk about, of just a moment, not a story, because it's not a story, but it was a moment where I saw what the man must have been well into his, no younger than 85, but I would say he was well into his 90s. And he had an oxygen tank, and he had his little Marine Corps, veterans hat. And he was trying to get onto the platform. And, a group of guys got together, and they helped him up to get onto the passage on through the side of the building. And it was just such like a, like I got it. Like, I understood, like, he wanted to be there, like, at that moment, like, he felt it was important, because our country had just been stolen from us, you know. And here you have this, like this think about that, like, how much has that man seen? How much did he see while he was at war? And he felt that it was important for him to be there at that moment. Like, I need to get on there with my little oxygen tank, and it won't matter. And it's just, that moment just like stands out to me so much, about how important that day was. And how I hate the idea that it's looked at as anything else, as, that people are looked at as anything else other than patriots that were out there that day.
Yeah, it always touched my heart talking about there was like a couple of old veterans standing there, and there was a whole bunch of people going up. And these one dudes looked back and they were like, "Hey guys, you coming?" And they were like, "Nah, we all served our tours. It's your guys' turn."
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like this moment, like it didn't include me at all, but it felt like it did.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
about going in, but then I really thought, then what? Like, what's the next? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how depressing if we went in thinking our country was standing behind us.
Which I wonder how many people did. To me, quite frankly, from the footage, it looks like it was a lot more of people just really confused by it. The doors are open. They figure, like, we're out here, like, why not let us in? Like, I can see how somebody would have really just, like, how people harmlessly, there's trolls that walked in, because we saw the footage of the trolls that walked in like anywhere else. There's clearly Antifa people that walked in to, create the vandalism and the bullshit. We saw that too. But it seemed like an overwhelming amount of the people that we saw were just, people with selfie sticks and flags. And
why did they Buffalo Soldier us with the shaman, symbology wise? Isn't that weird?
I think, I'll be frank with you. Like, I think that I don't believe that that he was a plant. I believe that he was just a regular person, like, who thought he was going out. Like, I can see how the energy, the moment, and then you get made a character out of. I was freaking wearing a trifold hat. Had I been inside, they would have taken a picture of me with the trifold hat and the crazy QAnon lady or whatever the hell it is that they would have made up. So to me, even the shaman is just such an example. Like, dude, like, we've really gotten to the point where this guy was in jail for a really long time without any ability to be able to talk to his family, because I think they had him in solitary confinement for I don't know how long. A political prisoner, for lack of a better word, and all because he wore the wrong costume.
That
right?
day, did you notice the prisoner of war flag above the Capitol? And did you think about yourself?
How can you possibly be bringing that flag up right now at this moment? You are now the second person that I've talked to about that day that brings up that flag. And it is so, I had a moment with that flag where I just stared at it for could have been a solid 15 minutes, Shani. Like solid. Like I have pictures of it on my phone. I zoomed in to take pictures of that flag as if though I had never seen that flag before in my entire life. And
I got it for the first time in my whole life. I stared at it like, holy shit. And I even had a moment, like this is a magical moment of everything else that went on in that day, that I was just like, that flag can't come down today. Like I felt like somewhere in that day, they were going to take the American flag off that Capitol. Like I felt like somebody was going to take the flag down with the prisoner of war flag. And I didn't want to see a Trump flag up. I didn't want to see a snake up there, like a don't tread on me. I didn't want to see anything else. I felt like somebody was going to take that flag down, and it was making me like sick. Like, please don't let that flag come down.
I mean, I guess that thought hadn't even crossed my mind, because again, at this point, like all I'm seeing is patriotism. I hadn't seen vandalism. I heard patriots at one point scream, "Don't," you know. I want to be careful what I say, because I know that freaking Antifa listens to fucking everything. I saw patriots out there. I saw a lot of patriots out there, and I saw patriots outnumber the 2 or 3 bad apples. And I'll tell you something else. The majority of the people out there were very aware that there could be plants amongst us. Like there was a certain level of like high awareness to, we had just experienced the summer of love, right? So we had a heightened awareness to our surroundings, to who was around us, how they were acting. Did they look like one of us? Did they look like they were acting? I don't know if you sensed that, but
it's like we knew we were going to be involved in a conspiracy that day. It was like our little like instincts were up from the moment that we walked into the city, and it felt like I had been to DC before that. It was different that day. It was like, it was like a corridor, and here's where we were allowed to play, and the rest of the city was shut off.
Yeah. The Hunger Games.
It was the Hunger Games.
I can't even believe what that day went. And I can't believe it because I knew in December. I wrote it down. I've got screenshots. I knew what it was about. I'm like, they stole the election. That's it. It's done. The election was stolen. I remember already knowing that in December. Like, the election was stolen. They're going to make it go away. They're going to delete our pages. They're going to delete the content. They're going to mess with the votes. They're going to mess with the likes. It's done. Like, that's what they're going to do. When he sent out that message and he said, get to DC on the 6th, he knew they were going to steal it. But he knew that they couldn't erase us. They couldn't erase us. They couldn't erase millions of us out there. They couldn't. All they could do was weaponize the fact that so many of us were out there to hijack the narrative and turn it into something else. But they couldn't ignore us. They couldn't ignore that we were out there. Does it make sense? Like, we needed to be out there. We needed to make noise. We needed to make so much noise that we would end up in history books. It had to happen. What the bad guys are going to label us as a result of that is irrelevant. We had to be out there. If not, what happened? What did we do after our country was stolen? Nothing. No key. If you ask me, that was I have a post about it on my page. I feel very strongly that I hate the idea that J6 was a setup. J6 was not a setup. J6, the people that went out to J6 were patriots. They were patriots that went out there for their country. The same way the patriots had gone out to the December 12 rally and the November rally. These organic rallies that had been set up by patriots that were disturbed by the idea that our country had been stolen from us. This is where organizations started being born from, of local activism, of people getting involved locally to fix elections or whatever it may be, or run for local office. All of that is born from the fact that they stole our country live from us. So to me, when people are like, oh, Trump hasn't, he set us up, and he hasn't built out the J6. He hasn't made any comment about the J6 Patriots, or he hasn't built them out or whatnot. Trump can't build anybody out. Like, the optics of that alone are so contradictory to what J6 was about. J6 had nothing to do with making Donald Trump president. It wasn't about forcing, oh, we want Donald. That's had nothing to do what it was about. J6 was about the audacity to steal our country live in the middle of the night, to steal our country from us. That's what it was about. So I get real irked, and like, it's disturbing to me when people are like, oh, it was just like a psyop, or it was just it was a sting up, or it was a setup, or it was Antifa, or it was whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? I remember standing up on a chair while Trump was talking and looking out and seeing miles and miles and miles and miles of flags and red hats. And for people to tell me that was all state propaganda, that was just absolutely not.
All that was set up just so me and you would go. Like, all that was just a setup.
No, man, we had our country stolen from us, man. People were pissed.
Here's another thing that I always hear go on. People don't think Antifa's real. People don't think Antifa's dangerous. People don't think Antifa's a thing. People don't think Antifa has a flag. People don't think Antifa has a group.
Like, what does that even mean? Like, that they believe that there's government agencies behind Antifa, or that there's just like the Jerry Nadler idea that it's just an idea, that it's not actually real? Because Antifa's real. It's been around for since when is Antifa around?
I know, it seems like
early 1900s.
Yeah.
The early 1900s.
People don't think it's dangerous. People are like, who's really being messed with by Antifa? And I'm like, well, it depends on the city you live in.
I mean, they mess with I guess how violent they are or how extreme they are completely depends on what city you're in. But yeah, try getting locally involved. I had my page operating for almost 3 whole years without ever getting doxxed, Antifa knowing who I was. I had over 150,000 followers, and I was in the Media Matters wrote about me, Rolling Stones wrote about me. Never was I ever targeted. Never was I ever targeted to the degree that I have been since getting locally involved in the school board. You understand the testament of that? Like, how powerful it is, the local involvement, how much they don't want you involved, that the only time that I've ever felt truly attacked has been when I get locally involved. I mean, it only fed me to get more involved, but that's just because I'm a masochist. But
well, you come from a long line of ladies that have been doxxed on the internet.
Correct.
Is that fun for a girl?
No, absolutely not. I don't think that doxing is fun for anybody, man. It's definitely not fun for women. It always breaks my heart when I see it happen, and that it's like used as a weapon, and doxing people for, their work, where their places of employment, like attacking people for that. Like, they're Antifa tactics, they are Antifa tactics. That's exactly what Antifa does to keep moms away from the school board. That's who they attack, Regular
that
moms
probably goes on a lot in the school boards, and that's why moms can't say anything, because they're nervous that it's going to affect their kids somehow in the trickle down of grades and discipline and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. they get really attacked. Like Antifa makes no secret about they sit there in the local meetings where moms are talking and expressing their concerns for their children, and they sit there with their faces covered up and they write down the names of every mom that goes up so that they can later dox them on the internet. And these are things that we are dealing with at a local level around the country, because I get messages from moms all over the country that are dealing with it. It's not just happening in Miami.
And
This is a
probably not even, I mean, 80% of the teachers at this point have got to be liberal minded because they're in the liberal education system. And
Mhm.
just this dawned on me yesterday. If you're educated, the more educated you get, you eventually get a doctorate. So that lets all of the NPC knows that you're the most amount indoctrinated. And then you get the good car and the good house for playing along with the program. And if you're a good doctor, you prescribe the drug so that other people get more indoctrinated. And
I
so
love how you always figure out the word play, Shani. You are the master at their spelling.
spelling witch. Hold on, I'm
Yeah.
turning on lights and I'm gonna pack my ball. I'll be like, oh, I'm taking my socks off, and then I'll just ash on my socks.
Shani. Life hacks. Follow me for more life hacks.
That's stone shit. Like, I don't want to get up right now. But I like to sit crisscross applesauce when I do my podcast. It like helps me like veg out like I would if we were sitting on a porch. So I don't want to sit in a
That's how I am
chair.
right now.
Yeah. And so to get in and out of the spot I choose to sit in, it's like pretty ridiculous. Like sometimes I have to stand up on my seat, and I don't have anything like lights. Like people have podcast lights. I have like my lamp, and then I have like it's a closed in porch. So it used to just be a Florida room. And now it's all closed
I
in.
know those.
Yeah.
I know
So
those.
it has a slider in between it, which is good if I'm up late podcasting, but it has an inside light that clicks on and it's so bright right there. This is my favorite thing that I want to be my background next.
Is that Nicki Minaj? I love this so much. Why is it not your background?
I think it's going to be my next background, like season 2 if I go live.
Please come back with the Nicki Minaj for season 2. Absolutely. Have me back.
This is just so triggering for people with the bunny and the butterfly. And they are like, what's the rabbit mean? What's the butterfly mean? And I'm like, symbolism will be your downfall.
Downfall.
I like all of it. I like the Y symbology of the rabbit ears. I think it all attaches to Dr. Fauci. I think also, not, the word pussy. Everybody thinks cat, but they used to call bunnies pussies. And so I
Really?
think that's even funny too. There's a picture of Donald Trump squeezing Pence's knee, and I always put grab him by the pussy.
Amazing.
Do you want to talk about Donald Trump? Do you miss him?
I miss Donald Trump every day, man. I can't believe that there was really people complaining summer of 2020. Like we had it good, man.
How much more is gas where you're at now than it was in the summer of 2020?
So I was filling up my tank with $38 premium when Trump was president. I needed $79 to pump a full tank just last week.
But how much more did your minimum wage go up though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like they're always like, oh, well, you make more money now. No, I don't work for Amazon or McDonald's.
Yeah.
What does Trump get no credit for that he did good?
I think that he did what the hell he could. Let's just talk about like general awareness to patriotism, to want to protect the country, to shining a light on the bad guys, you know? I always think of Fauci, so let's go to Fauci. I always think of how strategic it all was on bringing Fauci to the forefront, right? So you've got this bad guy who's been this lunatic, evil villain, perfect, the exact villain that you would imagine that you'd get in a comic book story, right? At some place, or maybe even in a horror.
Genocides all over the world, from gay
Kills-
men all the way to Africa, to the islands, to South America, like
to puppies.
to puppies.
I mean, to puppies.
To
Where
fucking
are
puppies?
this man has no limits. This man has no limits. And this man has been operating like this for how long now? We're talking about what, 3 decades? And no one had any idea who Anthony Fauci was prior to Donald Trump kicking him into the spotlight in 2020. It's like the finesse behind that. It was, he turned Fauci into a household name, and he let the Democrats ride that wave so nicely too, right? On Vanity Fair and Sexiest Man Alive, or whatever the hell it was. I mean, they were going through their cult moment with the Fauci thing, right? And to have Trump just shine this spotlight on him and create this, I feel like what he did with everybody else, he turned it into a reality show, and he turned Fauci into the reality show villain. And all of a sudden, everybody knew who Fauci was. He was in every house, in every living room. Every family was talking about him. And it's like that. I remember people on our side clearly. Why would he do that? Why does he feel like he has to be a bad guy? Why does he give Fauci an opportunity to talk? We know that he's bad. Why does he do that? Because everybody else had to see it happen. Everybody else had to meet him. Everybody else had to know who he was, so that when the moment comes that truth is exposed, because truth is going to be exposed, whether you believe that it's going to happen in some, big high profile action Hollywood type sequence, and that the world's going to change from one day to the next, or whether people are just going to get so fed the hell up that at some point you can only feed them so much bullshit before they realize that it's just that. But one way or another, people are going to wake up, and people are going to feel are going to fully understand what the truth is. And eventually the truth about who Anthony Fauci really is will come out. And when that moment comes, which it's already trickled in clearly, people will know who he is. It's going to be a big enough name to me where this is how the collective satisfaction comes from people coming down from grace, right?
That would be a nerdy first arrest, Fauci.
Yeah.
That would be that would set the trajectory. That is the actual Mandela effect of the QAnon post. If you want to be a double nerd that people say never existed, but some people say it totally existed, the first arrest post. But Anthony Fauci would be one for the because if you think about it, that's the secret society that no one talks about. You can talk about Masons and Skull and Bones and all this shit, but it's this medical pharmakia that exists throughout the world that every war has always been started by, that wants its little tentacles inside all of us, whether it wants to call us trans or anxiety or depression. And it's all their vax injuries on the other end. And it seems some kind of like Fauci might be this warlord,
I've always wondered truly that how many of these people that we set up as villains might never necessarily see a day in court. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, right? But I think that a lot of it is going to go down to the court of public opinion, and like having these people, that were otherwise think they were safe in these little like pedestals of their reputation and their own little circle jerk of bullshit that they feed one another, and like having that all of that crumble and people just not giving a fuck. Like think of like the award shows, like to the degree like that to me is like such like a fall from grace to what it meant to be an actor and make movies or whatnot. Like no one gives a fuck. No one cares that you're out there congratulating each other for whatever and pushing
Your
whatever new
speech
cause
or
and
whatever.
your speeches and your BS, and no one cares. No one cares to the point where they've had to cancel your little shows. And I think that right there is such a testimony of how far we've gotten. But like I've said many times before, I think I've told you before, I don't believe in the big action sequence ending. I think that everything trickles in. Excuse me.
You said "achoo" like it would be spelled out. It was so dainty and perfect. That's how Marilyn Monroe sneezes, I think. And her dress blows up and she holds it down at the front.
I sneeze like a retard. Fuck, what was I fucking saying? I lost my
No
fucking
action
train of
sequence.
No,
It's
I
gonna-
don't think that it happens. I think that a lot of things like that we've seen happening have trickled in so slowly that by the time that it's actually playing out in the main screen, like maybe people that are know too much like us in our community, it almost becomes like this anticlimactic like moment where it's like, oh, okay, so like
You're the
no.
asshole that you're like, I read the book. Like everybody else is watching the movie and you're like, this movie is not as good as the book.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. You're like, I already know how it ends. This character is not written as well as it was in the book. You don't know all the details of the backstory of why their
Right.
family did this. You don't know the 1,000 years beforehand. It's like Game of Thrones.
Correct.
And some people will never care.
Correct, sis. That's exactly what it is.
Trump did an interesting thing too, because it wasn't just Fauci he put in charge of it. It was Pence. So he knew this fake virus was coming in the same way we all did. That's if you've been in the conspiracy game long enough, then there was a part of the New World Order that you already knew about. It was going to happen in these steps down to the World War III, down to the blue beam that we still talk about now.
I never expected it would look like this, Shani. It's ghetto, bro. It is so ghetto. It's like the expectations that I had for the New World Order takeover and the lengths that they would have to go to trick.
That's where I got to feel like Trump really stuck a wedge somewhere in the works. Like whatever that 4 years was, it's a 1,000-year game plan that it took all of us wanting and needing these phones in our hand to really happen. And all the black mirrors in our faces, because otherwise we're too many people spread too many parts of the world. We cannot be controlled. They cannot shut us all down at once. It's an impossibility unless we have the phones in our hand. So it's going to be this long war. What's 4 years in a blip of 1,000-year plan? Nothing. But if we all knew it was coming, what little things could we do? My favorite part of the 5D chess part is if Trump's the Queen's Gambit. Because that's what I always thought the whole thing was. If you're looking at chess, there's all these different kinds of chess moves. And in the Queen's Gambit, you move your queen out to the center of the board. And it makes the other, no matter how good you are at chess and no matter how good I am, that as a move makes you have to go on the offense immediately or the defense. It changes everything about the way you're going to play and strategize from the beginning of the game. You're like, holy shit, because now you either want to take my queen out or you have to defend from my queen consistently throughout the game. So I always thought something about Trump was the Queen's Gambit, but I could never figure it out. What part of Trump, what is he using? Because I know he's this master level chess player, and every great world leader and any world leader is a chess player. It's like just game theory. So I was thinking, oh shit, he's the queen. He stepped out onto the center of the stage, and immediately it made everyone around him have to go on the offense or defense, which fucked up their entire game plan, no matter how long they planned it. But while that's happening, two things are going down. When the queen's standing in the center of the board, the pawns are running back and forth, getting knighted, getting queened, becoming king. And now they're the most dangerous piece on the board, and no one's paying attention that the little pawns are becoming kings. That happens why the Queen's Gambit. The other thing that I was thinking, this is where Putin kind of plays in. You can protect your king. And so if Trump's out here in the center of the stage, traveling around the world, India this, and doing insurrections this, and on Dateline, and I'm going to go on Joe Rogan and doing pay attention to me. No one ever pays attention to Putin. And now look what's going down right now. We've been waiting the whole time for some new world order to go down, that Trump was going to swoop in and clean it up. What about if it was never Trump? Trump was the queen. He just made everybody react.
I like this theory.
And so even still now, if Trump points somebody out, we, at first, our first instinct, 2018 through 2019, Trump points him out, good guy. Trump points him out, good guy. But it never was that way. He never pointed out a good guy, ever, ever, ever. He just was a magnifying glass. And he gave us these perfect little marketing quips that now even the left, fake news. All the news is fake news. From the newspaper to Shakespeare plays to the TV in front of you. It's all fake. It's to dictate and propagate your brain. So it's like these tiny little, because he knew our attention span was breaking. TikTok. I'm going to cancel TikTok. He never was, because our attention spans were breaking. And look how many people TikTok woke up.
Yeah.
Like, look how much information's gotten out there with TikTok. Truth, I even think with the TRUTHsocial, the bottleneck that's happened and how it's become a whole thing. Like, I'm watching his number count go up every day. Like, he only made that first tweet, and I'm watching his followers go up every day, or his first truth. But I think the bottleneck's a false bottleneck. Like, when it comes rushing in, it's going to be a perfect day that no one's planning on it, and then everyone's truth accounts are going to be on at the same time. It's like when the queen dies, truth will work. Because you know that bitch is dead. But
I'm waiting for that moment.
I don't know. I just am like, everything's so ridiculous. Everything's louche. I watch it with a wag the dog idea that this is probably a movie. We know there's empty cities throughout the world in Russia. It's so easy for us to bomb one and convince you it used to be a thing. It's Chernobyl. They've tried to sell us that lie. My whole life, they've sold us about Chernobyl. Even to the point in the last few years, right before the Q documentary, we got Chernobyl on HBO.
We did. Yeah.
So they had to reintroduce us to that. And here we are again with the Chernobyl louche.
Russia bad. This is where we're at. I mean, it's all, it's what you just.
It's so weird. But then here's the other upside down that we're in. The most conservative Americans. The ones that are holding the line in the 3D with their American flag. Putin gives a news conference and he's like, I'm going to roll on shore. I'm going to kill Joe Biden. All the Americans that would normally protect their country would all stand down. That's the upside down we're in, because our country was stolen. And so if he's like, oh, the American election stolen, you're under dictatorship, I'm going to free the American people.
Can you imagine?
This is the upside down we're in.
I wonder where Nicki Minaj lands in all of that.
That's really all that matters.
It's imperative that I know where Nicki lands on the bad.
You're like, I'm not going to make my decision until I hear when you run for office, that's what I want you before some big thing. And they're like, what's your decision going to be? You're like, I'm going to have to call Nicki Minaj.
amazing. The timeline, I swear, it peaks every day. The clown world peaks every day.
The people that speak up out of the blue every day that I'm like, look who's showing up. And it's almost like someone you just thought about. Like,
yeah, it's always somebody that was introduced into your personal timeline like weeks or days before. You're like, wait a minute, I was just jamming to that, or I had just been doing that, or I just heard the news on this.
well, this is my theory on the meme magic is because people could make a voodoo doll. That magic's real. And they could do some next level shit to the voodoo doll and you experience next level shit. You can't make a meme with intention and have that go out into the world. And then different than a voodoo doll, when people see it, it becomes like their energy goes into it.
And it's shareable, and it's meme magic is definitely real. So I mean, it all goes back to, you know, intention, and you're creating it in your in meme form before it's real. You're seeing it before it's been created in the 3D.
It was so fun and silly how long we've been training for this. I remember being a little kid and cutting magazines up and making collages before there was even such a thing as a vision board.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of vision boards, and people are like,
I used to cover my notebooks in magazine clippings.
Walls.
I used to, all of my, I remember getting the composition notebooks and covering them in like magazine clippings. Hello, vision boards, and when it's no awareness to what it was that was going on.
You know, another little magic game we used to play when we were kids. Remember that game MASH?
Yeah.
What was that little spell all about? And then you draw a spiral in the center and be like, tell me when to stop. Me.
You're right. And then you had to count the lines. That's right.
We were doing little witch spells.
Little witch shit. What the hell?
Was there anything your family was like, you're not allowed to have a Ouija board in the house? Did you ever do anything when you were young that your family was like,
No, we never did. That was never something that was. I don't remember ever having like a curiosity. I was kind of like a pussy for all of that stuff. But my family grew up atheist in Cuba, you know, you're not allowed to practice religion. So when they got here, they were just like excited to figure out their spirituality. So like my dad, there was always a picture of the Sacred Heart, and I, you know, we always believed in Jesus Christ, and they would take me to Catholic school, but then they would also have like Buddhas in the house. And then we had, you know, it was like, I guess, contradictory to some degree to people that grew up with very like structured religious households. My family wasn't very religious because they didn't know how to be religious. After that, when my parents got divorced, my mom became a Mormon, and then she baptized me in the Mormon church when I was like a kid. And then it was just, I don't remember spirit. It was more about the spiritual side of things, you know, always like, yeah, it was just, my parents were just, they wanted me to be a good person, and they wanted me to believe in God, you know, they believed in God. And I think that they were curious and wanted to find themselves, and they did, you know, they went through their own, we all had like our own little different spiritual journeys, but what it did was that it always opened me up to faith in general, because I didn't believe in salvation through Jesus Christ until I was in my 20s, you know. I thought when I was like 16 years old that I had my first kind of like spiritual awakening, curiosity, feeling of like this intense void where I had to feel like, I guess that I discovered that there was like a void when it came to spirituality, that was even like an aspect of myself that existed. And now that I had discovered it, I felt like I had to feed it, and I didn't know any better. I didn't want to go into the Catholic Church, that my family had put me in to go to, do my communion or whatever the heck it was. I didn't want to go do that. So I found that I gravitated towards Buddhism at that point in time. And I spent some time, let's say maybe like a few years, where like I believed in the philosophy of Buddhism. I didn't see it as a religion. I saw it as like a way of life. Adapted some of the teachings into my life. And then in my early 20s, I started attending like a faith group, and they were Christ-centered. And I went to them I was a part of the group for about 7 or 8 years. And it was, they mixed a lot of like psychology and like dealing with like trauma. They were a couple, and she was a psychologist and he was a former priest. He had given up his priesthood when he had left Cuba because he didn't want to be a priest anywhere outside of Cuba, and because he had been forced out of Cuba, he gave up his priesthood. And so they created this community, if you will, where they're Christ-centered, and they offer like therapy, no different than you would go see a therapist and talk about your problems, but you do so and it's Christ-centered. And they mixed a lot of religion with psychology and kind of like helping you out through your life traumas and issues by using God as the center of it. And I went to them for 7 years, and it changed my life. And that was where I had my experience that, I talk about it all the time. I found my way through Christ, definitely not by walking into a Christian church, because I feel like the entire structure of the Christian faith can lead people away from God sometimes. At least that was my personal testament, where like I felt like I was judged for being imperfect and how I showed up in my plea for salvation, like anybody else, right? It's like I was less worthy of it. And I always felt like that even when I was younger, because just I didn't grow up in the most structured faith-wise. So that came when it came to like the Catholic faith or the Christian faith or whatnot. And then like we went to Catholic church. I grew up really poor. So it's like if you showed up the wrong way or wearing the wrong clothes or not looking the proper way, then that also made you feel bad. And then Spanish was my first language. So it wasn't, there was a million things that would make me feel insecure in these circles where I felt more judged than accepted. So it led me further away from God. So when I found my way, it was through divine experience. It wasn't until I felt through divine experience through Jesus Christ where I was like, wow, I understood it. Like I experienced that moment that then leads down my curiosity of like, I want to pick up a Bible. I want to learn more about his path, about what how my life, what he did for humanity, how it affects me, what he did for me, what he did for my salvation. And it led
a
me.
lot of people don't feel worthy of salvation. I hear that from a lot of testimony of Christians when they're first coming around, that they're like, I thought like I would clean up part of my life and then I would come to Christ when I was clean, instead of like finding Christ and that helping me get clean in a way. And I don't mean clean from drugs or anything dirty, just whatever felt impure in their life or of whatever. It is that.
I think so much of that has to do with the construct of religion, though, don't you think? Where like people feel judged. I don't know. Like you see it happen like all the time. I guess it always manifests in different ways like throughout my life, but you always see like that.
I feel like a huge oddity that I have a relationship with Christ, but I don't have a worship of Christ. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I have this free, I've felt Christ. I've grown up with Christ. I know the difference between Christ and church, and even the difference of God and flesh of God.
Yeah.
And it feels very comfortable to me for the first time ever. But I also protect it more than I ever did when I was a Christian. In a weird, like, I don't know how to explain it. Verbally, I find myself being a contrarian to people that don't understand certain things, or I definitely need it if I'm doing my research.
Mm-hmm.
I always find myself somewhere in my research to go biblical as well. No
Yeah.
matter how historical, no matter how, if I'm political, scientific, whatever, I still find myself having to find a biblical reference.
Yeah. I guess that with me, it's I always think so much about like what what experiencing what experiencing Christ felt like. And I think that what it created for me was that it created a true north of sorts of energy. Like energetically, there's something that aligns with truth, like with that truth, like knowing that it's like, all right, I know what ultimate truth is. I know that my ultimate truth is salvation through Christ. And knowing that has acts as a barometer, if you will, for me to be able to tell what else are the things that are of truth in this life. So especially going down the different rabbit holes that we all go down on, right? Like there's so many theories that we could go down and
Mm-hmm.
explore and assess. And for me, it's always been like one of those things where like, well, I know what absolute truth feels like. So anything that's ever not the theory, because I've been very accepting of things that maybe otherwise are not accepted as norms within the Christian faith, if you will, or by the limited beliefs of what we know of what access we have to the Bible and what we know that could still potentially be out there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that so much has to do that and that we progressively get to the point where we understand that like that the truth, I'm trying to find the words to put this in the right way. If it's my absolute true north, then what that means to me is that like every other thing that I experience in this life, whether it be a theory, whether it be something that I'm watching in the news, whether it be something that I'm experiencing in my personal life, it all gets washed through that filter of truth. In order for me to be able to perceive like how much of this is bullshit, like how much of it is the theatrics of the mainstream media, how much of it is the mind fuck of the war or the fog of war that we're currently under right now. And it always leads back to that, deciphering like what's real and what's not is what aligns with that ultimate truth that I know to be Christ, and what doesn't. Everything that doesn't is just like, well, then that's not truth. It doesn't feel like truth energetic, where it's just.
Yeah. I in magic or in spells or in even demonic things, there's certain things energetically in like certain dimensions or certain things that no is a very powerful word. Like
Mm-hmm.
no is a very quick cutoff. It works 3D, 4D, maybe even 5D. There's a certain I don't quite know the meaning. I should ask a couple of people that practice more magic, but calling on Jesus Christ in a dark, dark time, it is like if there was a servitor, or if there was an energy that didn't ask for anything back. Like, the energy of Jesus Christ doesn't require that you ever drink his blood or eat his body. It doesn't require that you ever get baptized in any water. It doesn't require any of whatever these rituals are that different churches take part in. And it's pretty instantaneous. And it's pretty it's got to be looked at as powerful and pure in a way that, like you were saying, if of like a true north, that not a lot of other energies are that clean. Or it doesn't require anything in return.
That's all that I can connect with, right? That, and I think I've always been able to connect. That's just, it's, you know what it was? I've talked about this moment before, and I had this was kind of like the moment that changed everything for me. It was like a moment of like perception where it's like, that leads me down, boom, everything that leads to me having my divine experience, that ends up being the catalyst towards my faith. We were discussing the moment where Christ is on the cross, and he has a moment where he looks up at the sky and he says, God, why have you forsaken me? And it's like, it's such a, I guess that it could be such a moment that could be overlooked in the overall story of what transpires, you know, from the moment that he's led to carry that cross up until the moment of his death and the resurrection. And there was something so human about that to me. Like, here is the son, the chosen son of God, sent here for this very precise moment and for this very purpose. Here is this man that was aware that this was what was coming. He knew that was his purpose, what he was here for, what he came to do for us. And even him as a man has a moment of complete, like we all do, right, of feeling alone, forgotten about, or where we question even like our belief in general, right? Because it's like, God, why have you forsaken me? Like, dude, why do you suck? Basically, why am I going through this? And it just seems so human to me. And then that brought a certain awareness of like how much love that has to take, that it's like, here's God, and he could send his son down as a demigod. He could send him down as a god, but he doesn't. He sends him down in the most human form possible. So human, in fact, that his son says, God, why have you forsaken me? Knowing what his purpose was. And there's just something so powerful about that moment to me. And it was so powerful to me that, again, it acted as that concept, like grasping that, made me so, it made Christ, like any question in my mind that I had about Christ, the idea of like, oh, was Christ a religious figure, or was he? No, like, he was, of course God would send down his only son in human form if he loved us to the degree that we know that he loves us. Of course he would. What a beautiful testament to show how much love he had for us, and to send down his only son in flesh and blood like us. It's just, it was such a powerful testimony of love. And I'll always be so grateful to this collective that I was a part of, that allowed me. They never imposed it on me. They never imposed, like, they were accepting that when I went in, I was like, I identified as a Buddhist, and they're like, that's fine. It was through the experience of the word, the experience of like their own faith, of their belief, and like seeing how the story of Christ was so very much linked to the own stories that we struggle with every day, right? Because to some degree, we all go through life cycles that feel like deaths and resurrections of sorts. Like, how many different versions of ourselves do we not shed every few years or so? And again, it's like, what a way to mirror his his love for us, his purpose for us, than to send his son in this very human form. And I just find it to be such a testimony of how important God we are to him, how much love he has for us. When we talk about theories like flat earth or globe theory, right, where so many people land on the flat earth theory and thinking like, all right, so why would they hide it? And it's like, well, they hide it because it narrows down our significance to, you're just a speck in the universe. But what if it's all for us? What if this entire world was created for us to inhabit? What if this entire world was created by this, by God, and that his love for us was so great that he's like, I'm going to prove it to you. Like, look at this son that I'm going to send down in this very human form to live this superhuman life, just like the rest of you. And I have talked about this plenty. The superhuman life. And I just think it was such a powerful and such a changing moment for me on how it was that I viewed my faith after that.
You said that you think that there could be books maybe even missing from the Bible. Do you think there could be anything added in that's like things that aren't from God, that like the church did?
No, I don't. I think that words can be manipulated very easily. I don't think that they, no different than they can cut and clip this interview that we just did right now and turn it into whatever they want. I think that the power of omission is just as powerful as actually wanting to lie. But I will say this: I think that God's word is absolutely perfect, and I think that some of the things that people experience, like number synchronicities and prophecies or things that are happening to a lot of people, because it's these are questions that I've posed to the collective, and a large percentage of people can say that it's like things are happening to me. And I think that what's happening is that God's gonna find a way, whether books are buried, whether they're living out in the Amazon and you've never picked up a Bible before in your life, like God's going to find a way of moving the Holy Spirit within people one way or another. And I think that we are getting to like a time, a moment in humanity, a moment in time where this spell that the cabal has had us under for so long, that has suppressed our abilities that are very much in the same human divine nature that Christ showed up here, that God's son showed up here as a testimony for us on every other level, also showed up to show us that, healing is real, that we control we control what we can do, what we put out there, what we can create. And I think that we're getting to a moment in time where that's just something that's going, like, the Holy Spirit's going to find a way of moving inside of all of us one way or another. And if that shows up through a number synchronicity, then it's going to be. But that number synchronicity is going to lead you down to one curiosity, down another, down to other, down to another. And if there's one thing that I've learned after quite a few years now of doing whatever it is that we do, is that at the end of every single rabbit hole, you will find God. And if you haven't found God, if you're still like, if you don't find it, I just don't think that there's an end to the rabbit hole that you've got into. I just don't.
Well,
I don't think
you get to a point of the ultimate darkness that you start to see, like, people are inviting demons into themselves. Like,
correct.
People are doing brainwashing on other people. Like, I almost think sometimes, like, the absurdity, not that all the cloning isn't real, but to me, it could all be a psyop if a mask is possible. Like, it's almost like the absurdity instead of the Occam's razor that we're going to with things instead of still talking about the original things, that it's like, well, these people really do go through ritual. Like, ritual's real, and they do it in all sorts of levels of things, from blowing out birthday candles to walking sage down an aisle in the Catholic Church funeral. And then high level sorcerers and witches, and towns are built on things, and stars and moons come through buildings of certain things. And then some of these elite peel the faces off kids and scare them to get the same as the Yulin Dog Festival, like that same exact, is it Yulin or Mulin? I can't remember now, but it's that same dog festival where that Lisa Vanderpump was all anti, because they would steal people's dogs and then skin them alive and eat the meat because the fear goes through the meat. It's this exact opposite of a good hunter, where they're like, no, you want to get it in one shot, so that way none of the fear is released into the meat. It's like so weird. They want it. And so that's why they run torture. I even think that's why these elite kind of put all these movies and fears on us. These shark, like, think of how many thousands of years we swam in the ocean and loved it before the sound of Jaws.
Yeah.
Thousands of years, we were never scared. I mean, we were scared of a storm's brewing. That's a big shark. But so often we probably swam with the sharks all the time. Like, it wasn't even a thing. And they even tell you, oh, dogs and sharks, they can feed fear. They can find fear. Well, we used to never be scared of them. And now, dun-dun. So it's like the darkness of whatever these people are inviting into themselves, the Sasha fears. Like, maybe you can be the most famous person in the world. Maybe certain demons rely on all that attention, like you were saying, the award shows. So at what point that you're looking into the darkness, that you're not like, the back of your head is just searing, like you have a huge redneck from the sun just beating on you, that you're like, there's light behind you. Yeah. Like, you can only look in the dark for so long.
Is it, imagine, like, just like looking around, like our ability to still be able to have this conversation, like, there's still good out there. There's, I don't know, I guess it's impossible for me to imagine that there is no positive.
People think alcohol spirits, and they take part in that, and they're inviting little demons into themselves. And sometimes people play with a Ouija board and they don't feel good about it. If I always say that about magic, if something in your internals does not feel good about it, don't do it. It's the same as a drug. If you're about to do a psychedelic and you're like, I don't know, I just feel, don't do it. Don't do it. That's the same as magic. Don't do it. And if you even have something, if you're whatever religion, and something in your religion is like, my religion says not to, don't do it. Because it's like a protective thing for you right now. Like, I think you only get what you can handle with things, because things are doors, and but people won't play with a Ouija board or light candles and do a seance. They're like, I don't want to open those doors. But they sit and watch horror movies, drinking alcohol, fucking strangers, and they open those doors left and right. And they're taking pharmaceuticals that they don't know what them make. They're drinking death-proof water where voodoo spells are done over it. And I just think it's kind of levels of people inviting demons into themselves constantly and never knowing it. Like tiny little cords attaching them to them all the time. And we're getting to be a less and less godly society. It's not cool to be godly at all. It's not cool to believe in a higher power or source or anything like that. And every way of thinking, even like if you say light or Christ, now both those things argue each other. And it's like, what? Like that shouldn't be our enemy right now. Like, we can get to that later. If we have time to get to that argument, we are in Eden.
Yeah. Let's argue about that one later. Hey guys. Can we just argue about this one in a few, please?
I know. Can we put the Christ light worker argument, just like, I'm not opposed to it. Like, I'll pick a side once we get there, but can we stay just, what about if we just stay with Pizzagate? Can we just all agree to just remember the original one that they got us off of way back when, before there was even such thing as a 17th letter?
Yeah. The original. Can we remember the original style, please,
We don't
while
even
we're
have to
here?
call it that. Let's talk about the Franklin scandal or the Finders
Yeah.
or, I don't know, some, kid in some nursery in California being like, there's a tunnel underneath my nursery. And then they go and look at it and it's real.
Yeah, I mean, just like it did. That's exactly what happened with the Finders. After years of calling people conspiracy theorists for talking about the tunnels ended up being real. So,
And that's where I think everyone's like, oh, well, Hillary's not arrested. Well, I mean, if you're waiting for an arrest like that, look how many arrests there have been for human trafficking, for real, more in my lifetime than I've ever seen. And it's not
correct.
a psyop, it's the highest commodity on the planet. If we were evil kings, we could trade guns, we could trade drugs, or we could trade humans.
Yeah.
That's the biggest commodity.
And humans, you can make money off more than once as opposed to.
Totally.
That's where we're at.
And how is their blood not valuable? We all know that HIV or anyone that's had a blood transfusion, if you have younger, or just Lance Armstrong, if you have younger or more oxygenated blood, you feel better. Especially if you dump all your shitty blood and get some dreamy blood, you feel better. Even if you just get an IV of saline after a hangover, you feel
You
better.
feel better.
So
Right.
imagine if you got some 4-year-old blood, and then if the fear is amped up on that blood, so all of the adrenaline's pumping through it, because that's probably the most amount of adrenaline you get is when you're either in your fight or flight. Or so if they can do
Correct.
both, they're pumping your adrenaline.
Correct.
And I think Americans live in fight or flight more than any other. As great as our country is, generationally, at least since like the 70s probably, we've lived in a fight or flight. And that's why we cannot even think about a revolution.
That's you're absolutely right about that. I used to talk about that in like my corporate training classes about how to handle stress at like corporate level. How we live in a permanent state of fight or flight, and our bodies, because we don't have any natural, we're not running hunting for our dinners, we're not doing any of the natural things that would have otherwise activated this natural survival response. Now that is our caveman brain is still triggered by other things like the stress of traffic and being behind, bills and rent and tuition and loans and the 3001 things that we are bombarded with, even with like societal like expectations that come in from TV or perceptions or ads or things of that
Or just
nature.
your human animal right now. If I say shit hits the fan in a big city like you live in, you instinctively know there's not enough food and water around you to feed you. Instinctively, there's too many people. So just in your animal instincts, something's a little unsettled. All on top of everything you just said. Because we're not probably supposed to be living kind of in these like metropolitan centers either.
I think that we're forced into them, that they tell us that we're overpopulated, and that's fucking bullshit. I don't believe that for 1 second. They've got us jammed into these smaller areas so that we're easier to control.
I think Australia used to be a lot more populated. I think everything about human history is a lie. And there's only like 30 million people in Australia. And so, no offense to Australians. I know I have some that listen to my show. And there's only like 30 million people in all of Canada. And no offense to Canadians. I have some that listen to my show. But it's like, okay, so there's New York and California. Like
Right.
you like, and then we have 48 other states in our country. And Florida
Right.
is like the third most populated state in the country. It's bigger than Texas by population. So, I just think when you look at Australia, how there's nothing going on in the center, it's just a cesspool, like, unlivable. There's really not a lot of growable it's almost like the Dust Bowl. It's like probably the original Monsanto of whatever that happened hundreds of
Right.
years ago before they deleted our history. And now they only live around the outskirts of Australia. And
Right.
then they rewrite their whole history. You're a prison island. And that's it. They just tell them, oh, you were just whores and prisoners, and we just threw you on an island. And there's your
Yeah.
history, and it's this young, and there's nothing to fight for. And they took their guns in one day. Like,
Of course, there's nothing to hold on to. No story, no history, no nothing.
that's where I think even there has to be a spell with lines, with borders, with walls, with like, locks were made on doors out of certain metals, and keys were made out of certain metals to protect from spirits from going inside. Doors were made out of certain wood to protect, and so castles were made a certain way. And so I just think there's even something about us being 50 United States, all cut up and divided by the lines we're divided. It's almost like if each land had a power, and America's, like, let's say it was split into 7. America's power is so divided. It would be such a to get all these people
Everybody.
together. It's almost like they took if we had the last Thanos glove stone, they took it
Yeah.
and shattered it into 50 different states. And so
You know
even to
what's
get us
like-
to fight just 2, that would be easier to control those
It's-
2.
Because I mean, because of how hard it is, you know what it would actually bring people together? If some like wild madman with a really large following went on Twitter and told everybody, meet me here on this day. And then everybody would know exactly where to go and where to be at and what cause, right?
Do you think that's where I wonder with the bottleneck of truth?
Is that where we're going with it? Like
I
if
don't
it's
know.
coming to like some
Is
it'd
that
be great
tweet
for-
going to start with my fellow Americans, the storm is upon us?
Can you imagine? Die.
Is that truth going to start with that? Because at this point, I've even been like, if Joe Biden says it at this point, I'll fucking be like, what?
I'll still be like, Vladdy could say it. And I'd still be like,
That's where, when I saw this thing where they're like, oh, the Russian space station's going to fall out of the sky and it could affect all the satellites. And I'm like, here we go.
we go.
Because this is the new phase we're all in of like boredom. And because we've all been locked in our prison cells, like
Boredom. That's what it
Shawshank
is.
Redemption, they've shut off any way. And in a weird way, they've pointed out that the cubicle existence was fucked up and we were never supposed to accept it. It made everybody snap. And so now we thought it was good. Yay, the cubicle made us snap. But they don't have to pay rent, electricity, phone. We take those bills on. And now they are with us all the time at work. All the time we're sitting in the house, and now you're at work and at your house. And so now your job can just loose you all the time. You're ridden by the man inside your house. And their goal was that there wouldn't be a ton of men that you were ridden by. It would just be one, Jeff Bezos. We'd all work for Amazon, and we'd have our little wristy.
Technically, I work for Jeff Bezos because I still order stuff from Amazon. It's like one of those like bad habits I haven't been able to break.
Amazon's buying up shit from Walmart. There's
Are
people
they?
that get paid to go around and purchase certain items out of Walmart, and then Amazon resells them. But they have this, they get a certain few people, all like, let's say me and you both look up pantyhose today. they send out a thing to all these people in the area to go buy all the pantyhose around all these certain Walmarts. And the more of an area they can pick these up out of, then they know people are searching for them, which they know it'll make them go to Amazon to buy them. And now they can set the price.
Amazing.
And so if you think of kind of one of the things that made America great when America was great was Walmart, when Walmart was ran by Sam Walton, who was a huge American patriot who filled the entire store with American-made only products.
Is that the history?
And then, yeah, Sam's family took over and it becomes what it is. But it's just funny to watch this. You know, Walmart comes in later, Sam's Club and all this. They ripped the downtowns and the heart out of every city energetically across America and put all the Walmarts out by highways. Now, the powers that be needed, Walmart was the perfect guys for them to set up internment camps out by all the highways, exactly like the Nazis would like it. And if you look outside every Walmart, they all have reservoir lakes outside that you're like, that's not for a store, that's for a prison. And they're right by railroad lines. They have huge parking lots. I mean, they're set up perfect, like the exact same way if you went and looked at border facilities. All the Walmarts, and they're all going empty now because of the Amazons. But here's a credit to Donald Trump. If not for Donald Trump becoming the postmaster general for the day and then, you know, giving it over, which I'd still be curious to see what he signed during that day and what it affects. But Amazon single-handedly broke our post office. And then all of our towns got invaded by Amazon trucks, because Amazon was supposed to become our new postal service. And then they would decide a free postal service is so important in a country, like, or a postal service where I can get a letter from you to me. And no one realized the importance. We've lost the value of it because of email. And they're like, snail mail, who needs that? It's not important. It's important because I can send a letter to you with a seal and nobody read that motherfucker. Who knows who's ever read our email? We think the internet isn't all one computer. We're under the illusion we're just not under the network of one fucking computer at its origin. Like, it all started in one box. Here's the internet, and we all got on it. And then it got bigger, and we all got on it, and it got bigger. And so Amazon was just going to take over all that stuff. And then they were going to deliver our election ballots because we were all going to be locked at our house and accept it. All of our food was going to be delivered by them.
But I mean, very much could still be the plan, because remember, they're on defense mode right now. I believe it's my idea that they are in defense mode right now because it's all about how we react, right? So it's not to say that these are not plans that they have in their back pocket ready to activate at the right moment, just waiting to see how many sheep they...
Even the light bulbs. Remember Obama switched the light bulbs on us and Trump was like, no, and brought back the old ones?
Yeah.
Because think of now, if 5G and these vaccines and all that is real, let's just say all that's real for philosophy's sake, what would happen if all those light bulbs now, we were clicking them on in our house? Like, I wonder how much those light bulbs affect people right now and they don't even realize it.
Right.
Because think, what were those? And think of what they were for landfills. Spiral-shaped light bulbs. They last 9 years. I wonder how many people have those all over their house. They're probably putting out some kind of frequency that makes them want to, like, punch their spouse.
Turn out the spiral light bulbs. Looking around.
I know. That's right. It's like, and they were more expensive at the store, and everyone was like, thanks, Obama.
Thanks for these great light bulbs and these phones.
And these phones, Obama phones. I know. I can't believe Obama has coronavirus. I was like, here we go again. Me and Michelle are vaccinated, but we both got coronavirus.
mean, they gotta let the theatrics keep going. I wonder if it's like, the talent agent calls and it's like, well, you've been selected this week. You're gonna be the celebrity that has coronavirus. Gotta keep the bullshit going. And everybody just knows that, oh, fine, I guess it's my time. Get booked in the spa or something.
Be like, I'm the one that has to go down. Like, do you get your secret envelope from the CIA? That's like, here's the role you're gonna play this week. Henry Kissinger writes you a letter, probably snail mail. They probably all use the postal service, and they probably all have wax with one of those stamps. Well, think of the alchemy of pen. I have it written down on stuff I want to research, like quills. You have a specific bird, and then you got your ink from a specific place, and then you put it on a paper mixed of cotton, hemp, certain kinds of tree bark. Like, it would be pressed in molded paper. And then you would write a letter that you took such time that learning calligraphy and cursive and your penmanship was just yours. It was like that was alchemy to somebody, a handwritten note.
Fact.
And now we're all tip, tap, tip, tap, tip, tap because the computer can read it.
I still be writing everything down, though. I've got notebooks on notebooks on notebooks.
Me too. I have it all around me.
Yeah.
I need it. I need it. It's the only way I can really organize my thoughts.
Yeah.
And they look like that of a mad woman. Like, I carry around a pocket constitution and I keep paper in it until I do my show in between times. So right now there's 2 pieces of paper because last time I didn't want to use any of my notes. So then they're like, sometimes they're really big things. And sometimes they're just like dots drawing to other things to remind me to talk about something else. And yeah, they look crazy. But I don't like to regurgitate stuff either. And so once I'm done with it, if I don't end up talking about it, it goes here where I have like a stack of papers. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Maybe it'll be comedy one day.
Put them into a book.
Yeah, it's
an ebook.
Rant worthy. I know, an ebook, not
Put them into an ebook.
Not real paper.
Yeah.
I know. I think I still have hope. I'm not black-pilled. I still see too many things happening in the world.
I still have hope. I still have hope. And I think that I think that the human spirit is resilient. And I think that people will eventually wake up. I just think it's something that has to happen collectively. And America is a bigger collective, as we just spoke about. And it's also a very comfortable collective with the illusion of freedom.
Don't you think our diversity is the best thing about our country?
Absolutely.
It what gets makes no credit.
I think the ability to be whoever you want to be here. No, because everybody's always blame the white man for everything lately. It's like, Christ, like, this country is amazing. This country gives everybody opportunities, like, and again, the melting pot. Living in Miami, this is like a third world country sometimes.
The first is first world and like fourth world. And that can all happen in just like a 2-block drive or walk.
Yeah.
I know. I used to, growing up here, being the mixing pot, being diverse as fuck, and we all just shared everything. The reason America was so rad is you could be from anywhere with anything, and it would just become better because it was here, and somebody touched it that would have never touched it before, and they were like, oh, pork was cooked all over the world, and then a Southern black man got a hold of it. You know, like, it's just like these certain things that just became American as fuck. Even music, even poetry, even art. And somewhere, I think our diversity is what made all that stuff great. And that's what they didn't want anymore. They want us to be divided as a book.
That's how they keep us weak. It's happened at every level, right? Like the division happens at every single level. So wild to see it happen.
Are you doing a podcast? Do you want to talk about that right now before you go, or not yet?
Yeah, a little bit. We're working on a little something, something. But yeah, it should probably be up by the time that this airs, right?
Probably at the rate I'm
It might be.
going.
It might be. You told me you've got a log, so no. So I'm gonna be working. I am working on something that's gonna be more geared towards the local crowd, but it's definitely gonna be something that can be consumed by everybody. And gonna talk about culture and politics, but it's going to um, heavily reflect my Cuban American upbringing and living in Miami and the culture down here and how it affects my viewpoints on the world. But I'm finally gonna launch the podcast and I'm super stoked. So I'm not quite sure when that's gonna go live, but we'll be recording in the next couple days. And yeah,
Do you have
super
a
stoked.
format and everything?
We are working with that, but we do have an engineer that's helping us with setting all of that up.
I know you guys are doing it next level. Of
Yeah.
course, you're doing it all Miami. Of course.
Of course.
I know. I can't wait. I'm excited about it. So I'll have to get all that stuff and drop it in slides with this.
Yeah, I'm
And
stoked.
do you want to tell my audience anything before I get you out of here? I kept you long enough.
No, I hope that we can get together again soon. I'm like really stoned. I don't know how I got this high on. I'm so high.
I'm so high. I was like, part of it, I remembered we were recording. The other part, I'm like, what did we talk about?
Other parts, I was like, no, dude. Yeah, no. But no,
you
man.
picked up coconuts today.
I did. I picked up coconuts.
I napped. I had the laziest Sunday.
I haven't napped. I've been yawning right now towards the end because I haven't napped. I don't do well when I don't nap. I'm like a 5-year-old.
Do you have Leo in your chart?
No.
Leos like to
Is
nap,
that a Leo?
apparently. That's something to know about Leos. Leos need a nap like a lion.
Like lions? That would make sense. I can see that. Okay.
Yeah, a little napper. I got Leo in my Mars.
I don't really think I've got Leo anywhere. Got a lot of
Sagittarius.
A lot of fire. I got a lot of fire. Other than Leo, I've got the Sags and I've got the Aries. And then I've got, the adopted fire, the Scorpio.
That is not fire. It's the coldest cold. It's dry ice.
I guess that would make
You're like,
sense.
oh my God, did I just burn my hand? Oh, my hand just fell off.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks fire is the hottest, but you can repair like a 3rd-degree burn. You can't really do anything once your fingers dry ice and hit with the hammer.
Valid. That's it. That's the end. You're right. That's the Scorpio. You're absolutely right.
But I have learned that I think the only one that can warm up a scorpion is a Sagittarius. Because Aries don't really, they're just like, they're headstrong directly into it. And then after a while, an Aries is like, but I don't really give a fuck.
Yeah. But they were, they still work around it. I think that it's a combination of the Sagittarius and the Aries thing, because Sagittarius have a little bit less patience for the sticking around. I think it's the Aries in me that's more like,
oh yeah, the Sagittarius is like, I'll do it until whatever energetically it feels like I've satisfied with that thing. And then I'm like, on to the next thing.
Yeah. Why are we like this?
Aries seems like the most grounded fire sign.
Yeah.
I'm an Aries moon, so I might be biased.
Well, yeah.
I have a ton of Aries moon friends. My wife's an Aries moon too.
Yeah.
We're so stoned now at the end.
I am so stoned. I really should not have gotten this stone, Shani. Like, I really should not have gotten this stone. I don't know what I was thinking.
If we have to do it again, we can. That's the best part about my show.
We might have to because wow, I'm so stoned. I don't remember half of it.
That's really the best part about my show. You don't know how many times I've done this where I'm like, we don't ever have to leave this,
I love
this anywhere. Because sometimes it goes like this where I'm like, I shouldn't have just kept hitting the bowl and kept hitting the bowl. Sometimes it's perfect. Like I'm the right amount of high all day and I'm just stay on course.
I smoked almost a whole joint by myself. Like there was no need for that. There was no need. But yeah, you can have, I can be found at redpillbabe on Truth. I haven't done one Truth, not one, but redpillbabe on Truth. Redpillbabe 1776 on Instagram and on Telegram at redpillbabe B with an extra E.
Are you shadow banned this week on Instagram?
I sure am shadow banned this week, so make sure you type the full name.
Mm-hmm.
All my pro Vladdy content has gotten me banned.
It's so crazy. Aren't we in the craziest world?
You know, they've got something new every week. That's the topic this week.
Well, maybe the Russian space station will go down and take the whole internet with it.
If we're lucky.
I'm like, I always have this dream that one day all of our disappeared accounts will just show up somewhere in like the Library of Congress.
Can you imagine? Oh, I love it. I always think about that too.
I know, like how silly is this world gonna get where they're like, here was the great internet battles of the 2016 through 2020. With the small little wizard witch meme battle, that was still my favorite.
I really love the positive outlook you just gave us all of like ending the war in 2023. I hope you're right.
No, that's already when the history books will be written. I'm like, I don't know how much longer I can mentally play along. I'm like, can there just be an airline that I don't have to wear a mask on? And I will probably, like, you guys can New World Order around me.
I can figure 10 around me.
Can I go on a cruise boat without a mask and vax? Thanks. Just carry on with the Russian war. I just want to go and do some cha-cha slide.
I know, a little vacation, Shani. I get it. You're committed. God bless you for that, sis.
That's what we need. A cruise.
Yeah.
A truth cruise.
I mean, the way cruises are set up.
It can't be that. We can't mask and vax, though.
No.
And we need music and psychedelics. Okay. I will put all that on you. And here, I'm just going to stop this and I'll say bye-bye.
So she has been Cheney and now she's off to smoke a blunt. See you next Tuesday, you fucking cunts.